Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time to wrap up August, which it's not technically over yet, but I don't see myself finishing any other books. I mean, although there might maybe one of the current book I just started, it's possible, but it's a slim possibility. So let's talk about what I read in August, and I will also share what I'm currently reading, like the book I just mentioned, and I also just literally bought 2 books, so I'll show you those as well. So first, let's start with, I guess I will start with Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This is a reread. And I definitely love it a lot more now than I did the first time. The first time I thought it was just okay. It was fun, but now that's what's happening with all the Austen books so far, with the Austen novels, is that I'm appreciating them, enjoying them a lot more now than I did the first time I read them. I think partly because, I was like, I don't want to like Jane, kind of like, people that don't, just because something's popular doesn't mean they're gonna, necessarily like it themselves. I think, in all honesty, and also, your tastes change over the years, so I feel like my tastes have changed a lot, and, I also think the whole fact that I was reading when I was reading some of her stories, it was like I was reading them in this that Barnes & Noble bind up of all her novels, so it wasn't very comfortable to read it. So anyway, let's actually talk on this specific book. So Sense and Sensibility involved the Dashwood sisters, and their father has just died, and their half-brother is convinced by his wife that they are getting too much of their father's inheritance, and that they won't have enough for their son, their own son. So he decides to decrease how much they're going to get from their father. His wife claims their house. I think it's Moreland. I don't remember what their estate was called. Claims their house, so they end up being more like visitors than owners of the house, and they are forced to downsize and move to the countryside, to a smaller house. And they go through, and it's like all Austen novels, the 2 sisters are trying to, fall in love, find husbands, and they're, it's all about that and their interactions with their new neighbors. And it's just the plot, like Jane Austen's plots are I feel like they're all very simple and kind of they all follow the same thing. I wouldn't say they're exactly formulaic, because different things happen to each of the characters, and the characters have each of her characters have vastly different personalities, but they kind of all, like, critique society, and the female lead is always trying to, find a husband, or everyone's trying to find her husband, and she falls in love, so they kind of are, and they're kind of not formulaic. So the Dashwood sisters are very much have opposite personalities. Like Marianne Dashwood, she wears her heart on her sleeve. She's dramatic, and everything. And if something goes wrong, it's the end of the world. And she ends up falling in love with this guy, Willoughby, who finds her on the moors, caught in the rain, and kind of quote unquote rescues her. And she is immediately taken with him, and they have so much in common. They get along really well. They talk. They have the same kinds of jokes and stuff like that. And then while her older sister, Eleanor, she's the more reserved one. She keeps her emotions in check. She feels like she shouldn't express her emotions too much, and is just very serious-minded and very practical person, but doesn't, like, live her life, like, like, people assume that she's very hard-hearted and that because she doesn't express her emotions as openly as Marianne does. And she is in love with the brother of her half-brother's wife, Edward Ferrars, but she eventually finds out later that he is engaged to someone else, that someone else actually tells Eleanor, not realize that Eleanor is in love with this guy. So it's really charming, and, I love the relationship between Eleanor and Marianne. You can tell they care about each other and want what's best for each other, even though they don't always agree on that, and don't understand each other. And like most sisters, they annoy each other, sometimes. Like, Marianne doesn't understand why her sister and others aren't as openly emotional as she is. So she's very judgmental of Eleanor. But Eleanor's also, I feel like, judgmental of Marianne because Marianne is letting her emotions get the best of her and making, and that makes her very naive. And, which is funny because their mom and Marianne are always, like, she's a little wary of Willoughby. She doesn't trust him. And wants her sister to be cautious while their mother is like, why are you telling her this? Why, you're so cynical and you shouldn't think like this, which, and it's just, I feel so bad for Eleanor because even their mom is judgmental of her, and I think it's almost better to be cautious than jump on the bandwagon. But at the same time, though, you can't be too cautious. And people don't know when Eleanor is, they don't realize, they don't know her feelings that well because she's so reserved and keeps her emotions to herself. Which is not entirely her fault, I feel like, because I think society tells that's how a proper woman should be. A proper young lady should act. Now, I feel like, though, we didn't get as much. There's a third sister, Margaret, and, like, I feel like I kind of forgot about her. Like, when they mentioned the name Margaret, I was thinking, oh, that must be, she must be a servant or something. But then I remembered, oh, wait, there's a third sister. And that's Margaret. So I feel like she doesn't have much, the book would have been fine without her. She's just someone that is mentioned, and, like, I feel bad because, she's forgettable, and there's not much for her to do, until, like, there's just a mention of her, and at the end of the novel, they say, now they can focus on Margaret and finding her a husband and stuff like that, because she's of age now. So I feel like she was very underdeveloped. I also think Edward was underdeveloped. And what we got of him doesn't put him in a good light, because he seems kind of a bit of a dumbass and a bit of a coward, because he doesn't stand up to his mother, and she doesn't, the woman that Eleanor is told he's engaged to, even the mother doesn't approve of her. Edward and this girl were childhood sweethearts. And the mom has someone else in mind for her son, for Edward. And on top of that, he hasn't told this girl, that he's no longer in love with her, that he's in love with with Eleanor. So to me, that's a little messed up. And I feel like he's in the book a lot more than Margaret is. He's in the book more than she is. But he's, like, in and out. You barely spend any time with him. And, I think what potentially helps is in the adaptations, he's played by actors that I like. In the movie, he's played by Hugh Grant. And then in the miniseries, he's played by Dan Stevens. So I think that makes him a little more appealing. So because I kind of forgot about, I did not even think about the fact that he's kind of an asshole. And he's kind of a coward. I mean, he's not mean and he's not, well, not an asshole in an obvious way, but in the fact he kind of strings Eleanor along and the other girl as well. So maybe asshole's a little bit too harsh, but he's kind of a jerk to them. And I wish I remember the channel name, but there is one was a booktube video that I watched. I think she would be considered a booktube channel, where she talked about how she thinks it would have been better for Eleanor to end up with Colonel Brandon, who is the guy who's in love with Marianne. But Marianne thinks he's too old. He's like in his 30s, which I find kind of funny. I mean, I know before anyone tells me, because I've had people tell me that, oh, well, it was, like, it's back then, it was, of course, so it would be considered normal back then. And so I know that. I know it would be considered normal back then, but it doesn't make it any less funny that the guy is 35, and that's considered old. Although Marianne is 17 in the book, in most of the book, so it's like 17, 18 years old. 18, of course, if she's 18, then legally she's an adult. But she's still kind of young. So, yeah, so in comparing Colonel Brandon's age to hers, yeah, he does seem kind of old for her. But at the same time, as someone who's 32, and as a best friend who's like 37 or 38, maybe even the same age, 35, it's very weird and funny to consider that Colonel Brandon's considered old. I love Colonel Brandon's character. He's awesome, and not just because, he's played by, what is his name? I can't think of his name. Snape guy. The guy played Snape. I cannot think of his name. I can picture his face, but I cannot think of his name. And then in the miniseries, he's played by this other actor who, I can picture him too, but the only other time I've seen him, I think, was, David Morrissey. That was the guy who played him in the miniseries. David Morrissey. And it isn't just because those guys are great, but also the character is very great. He's great too. He's a little more quiet and reserved, but he's charming, and he really is in love with Marianne, and he deserves better. Although, at the same time, the girl that did the video I mentioned earlier, she did talk about how referring to Marianne is his reward, and if he wooed her, and it's a little bit, that is kind of weird, because it's like, even though Marianne was not very nice to him, at the same time, you shouldn't pin her as, like, someone's reward getting her love, because she didn't love him. She still didn't love him by the end, and, so it's just, she was only, like, so it's just, I feel like she only, she gave in and was like, and I'm great, he's a perfectly nice and handsome man, he's great, and, I could see, and she would grow to love him, but, I don't know, it's just, it was kind of, the ending was a little weird. Like, I didn't like who ended up with who, any more than the girl who did the video. But this was great. This is the cloth bound edition, and you can tell it's used because it has stains on it. I did get another, which you can see it on here. This darker stain, I think, is from my dad accidentally spilling soda on my backpack when I brought it to the pool. But yeah, so didn't talk about that one. Okay, so next, let's talk about the two short stories or novellas by Lev Tolstoy. I'm going to say it correctly. You're apparently supposed not Leo. The actual Russian pronunciation is Lev, I think. And so I finally read the other two stories, the Kurzer Sonata, and then Hajid Muradji. So stuff like that. It's probably exactly what Steve Tawney was talking about in his video, pet peeves with him. And it was an old video that Steve Tawney made where he talked about his pet peeves about things that booktubers should and shouldn't do. And one of the things was, if you gotta figure out how to pronounce words. If you don't know what the pronunciation is, like, look it up. And those 2 words I probably should have looked up. But yeah. So anyway, they are short. His 2 novels, the Kurzer Sonata it starts out on a train where our narrator is traveling in a car with a group of people, and he's listening to this couple. This couple seems to be very much in love. They're talking about love, and they're very much in love, talking about how great marriage is and how much they love each other. And this other guy, this youngish guy, overhears them talking, and he's amused by their conversation, and he doesn't believe in love. And he doesn't like women either. He thinks they're cynical, manipulative bitches. And so he starts talking to our narrator, and of course the other couple, and some of the other people that were in the car with them leave because they don't hear about this guy and his little attitude. And so he tells our narrator the story of how he caught his wife, the woman caught his wife cheating, or allegedly caught his wife cheating on him. Like, how he fell in love with her, and like I said, allegedly he caught her cheating with her, her music partner or her music instructor or whatever. I don't know if he was her actual teacher or he was just... And he even tries to solve the problem by them having kids together, and that doesn't work. Because, yes, they have kids, but he realizes the hard way it's not. It's all about him talking about how he murdered her and how he's, like, basically getting away with it now. And it was very interesting to get inside this guy's head. It was fascinating. Of course, as a woman, an American 21st century woman, white woman / Asian woman, they kind of annoyed me at the same time. Like, I thought it was very interesting to be in this guy's head, but at the same time, I was like, you're an idiot. And like I said, he allegedly, okay, so he doesn't know for sure. He just heard them in the room, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he heard them having sex. And he doesn't even go in there. He just starts yelling at her and being angry and accusing her. And he doesn't believe her because he already hates her. He has built up all this hatred for her. And, distrust. And he even, resentment too. And even the kids pick sides as well, I think, between the 2 of them. And it's just so, like, it's like watching a car crash. And you can't look away, which is funny because my dad hates that when people are taking, being slow because they just there's this accident on the middle of the road and everyone has to stare at it and watch it. And I feel like that's what this is. It's like this particular story is like a train wreck. This guy is messed up and crazy. And it's just so fascinating to read and be inside his head. I mean, there were times when I almost thought about stopping, but it was only 2 stories, so it wasn't they aren't long. They're novellas, so they're not super long. Okay, and then the other one, Murad, that is actually based on an actual thing that happened to Tolstoy. He was in the Russian army, and he had met the guy that this story was about, or he saw him. He was a general or something, and he deflected from and joined their side. But his family was being held hostage. So he was like, I can't help you and pass on secrets because my family's being threatened, so you gotta go rescue them. So this one was also, first off, I thought it was really cool that it was based on something that actually happened. That the author himself experienced. Like, he was there and he met the guy. So, like, it felt more personal. Like, even though it was probably a fictionalized version of events, it still felt very personal. Because, like I said, the author, Tolstoy, was there. So out of all the stories, that is probably the one I liked the best. All the rest of these stories are, like, they're good. They're very amazing stories, and they make you think about a lot of things, but they're also very, like, depressing stories, because none of them end very happy. I mean, even the last one does not really end happy. They're very cynical, have a very cynical view on life. And which, yeah, nothing's wrong with that. I mean, yeah, you shouldn't, I feel like, why do you have such a cynical outlook on life? But that's because I just don't understand how someone could have that cynical outlook, but I haven't been in their shoes. I don't know what their life is like. I don't know what they've seen, what they've been through. So, I think, yeah, it's okay to have that. I mean, it's not okay, but it's none of my business. And it's probably more realistic. So yeah, I'm not going to keep this. It's in the donation pile. But it was very interesting, and I definitely, if you want to read Tolstoy, then start small and start with these. Because they're novellas, and you get a feel for his writing, but like I said, they're a little cynical and, sad, tragic. Okay, and then after those two, I finally read The Clockmaker's Daughter, which I did a separate review video on this. Like all of her books, this is multiple timelines. It starts in the modern day, which in this case of when this book came out, that would have been 2017. And then we go back and forth between 2017 from 1862 to World War II. And it's all about our present day character, Elodie, she works as an archivist in London, and she discovers an artist's satchel and a picture of this beautiful woman that she's really can't stop to look away from her. She decides to do research and finds out that this woman was the model and lover for this artist, Edward Ratcliffe, and he took her to this house called Birchwood Manor, but something terrible happened there. And all we know is that someone died, someone was murdered. And so from there is a writer in 1928 who comes to the house and is enchanted by the house, just like Edward was. And he meets the sister of Edward, who owns the house now, and decides that she's going to make it a school so that young girls can get an education, not just learn to be housewives and cook and clean and sew, but also to have an actual education. And she anonymously tells him about her brother in the story and stuff, so he writes a book that Elodie discovers. And then we also, not too long after that, the school is open and there's this little girl named Ada who's an Indian girl from not Indian as a Native American, but actual Indian, like from India. Her parents left her there, but she ends up being orphaned while living there, and then she also gets involved in an accident that happens at the house at Birchwood Manor. And then there's a 1940s storyline where a mother with her 4 children, she takes them to live at Birchwood Manor while her husband is away at war. And so this was just such an interesting story. Like, I love Kate Morton's writing style. Like, I just get lost in it and it feels very cozy to me, even though it's the stories are often very tragic. And like I said, I love historical fiction, so stories that, have a modern day story mix where someone learns about the past. That's my little fantasy. I would love, like, I can live vicariously through the modern day character, because I've always wanted to work. The idea of working as an archivist and doing research and learning about the past is just really cool. The problem with the reason why I could never do it though as a job is because there's certain subjects that I'm not good at. And that's like math and science. You know, you still need a little bit of math, like you're working with numbers and stuff like that. Although I don't know. I mean, even if you're not really that much, you probably still need to take a math class. I probably still need to take a math class to work in an archive. So I can live vicariously through these characters. And maybe even write a book about it one day if I ever do become an author and actually write something. But yeah, so and I love how all of the characters, all their lives, it's a story where all these characters' lives intertwine and something links them all together. In this case, Birchwood Manor itself links all these people together. Yes, I just love this book. I'm glad I finally read it. I don't know why it took me so long, but I finally did, and I cannot wait for Kate Morton to write another book. I hope she does soon. Although I probably won't buy it until the paperback comes out, because I'm trying to not buy hardbacks anymore, unless they're like tiny hardbacks. Okay, so next. So my original plan was to read Firestarter by Stephen King, and then there's a couple other, and then some of his bigger ones I've started. But I decided, because this one was gonna be like a movie or a miniseries on Apple TV, I thought I would go ahead and buy the book and read it, and that is Lissy's Story by Stephen King. And this is basically a woman who, after 2 years, she's still grieving the death of her husband. She's still kind of haunted by his memory. And he was also a very famous author. And while she's still grieving his loss, she's approached by a hitman who threatens her and is like, I want your husband's unpublished manuscripts so we can publish them. And, so she is dealing with all that, while at the same time, she's coping with the fact that her sister has gone basically, essentially catatonic, because her ex-boyfriend left her and her daughter, and so she is forced to put her and her other sisters are forced to put this sister, Amanda, in a hospital until she wakes up. So this was one of his novels that wasn't only scary, it was just very suspenseful and intense. It was scary in the fact that this guy was trying to kill her. And it was more of a drama. It just, this woman dealing with grief. Like, I feel like if you love Pet Sematary by Stephen King, you would probably like Lissy's Story. It also kind of reminded me of Rose Madder, and the fact that it's about a woman who's trying to find her inner strength. And there is, of course, that supernatural element that Stephen King is known for including in his books, and I'm one of the people that actually likes it. I know a lot of people, one of their complaints, like for books like The Outsiders, is, of course there's a supernatural element. Like, you didn't need the supernatural element. But I always like it. I'm a big fan of when he includes supernatural elements. And it's just, Lissy's journey is so interesting and so relatable. Not that I can relate to losing. I've had family members like both my grandfathers have died, and I was very close to them. But I do understand that it's very different when it's your husband or your child. God, the idea of losing your child. Can't even imagine. But, so I don't know the kind of grief she's going through. And also, one other thing about the plot is that Scott, her husband, has got his own skeletons, his own demons. He had a very abusive childhood, and there is a monster within his family members, and to the point where he doesn't want to have kids with Lissy anymore because he's worried that he will spread that his a child of his will have the same monster within them. But it was so good and just riveting and just relatable, and he really and the world that they have is really cool. Like, it's the supernatural element isn't like a big part of the story. So I think, if you're like a seeming man who's not too crazy with the supernatural elements, it doesn't play a huge role in the story. Like, we spend a lot of time in the real world where, with real world drama and stuff. Like Lissy grieving for Scott and dealing with her sister and her relationship with them. But this is just such an intense, beautiful, tragic story. And like I said, if you like Pet Sematary, I think you might like this one too. This is one of his ones that you would like. The last book, like I said, there is a chance I might get through another book, but I don't know, But the last one that I finished was a library book. I started to use the library again, although right away in the evening I started feeling that moment of anxiety of, like thinking, oh my god, what if I borrowed too many books and then I neglect my own personal collection, and so that's the struggle in me in the library. Is like, library books are free, you can get them, but because I'm trying to return the library book, I end up, focusing more on the library book rather than my own personal collection of books. And that's not good, because I will always keep buying more books, and then they will basically continue to grow. Sorry, my pants, the little fold is messed up. But anyway, so this one is A Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, and the first time I heard about this one was from Oliver and Book Olive. She said she really enjoyed this book. I think she gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. And I think I also gave it 5 stars. And going by my own star rating, I gave it 10 stars. Like, instead of 1 through 5, it's 1 through 10 for me. So this is a legal drama that involves a court case where there's this new alternative treatment facility created by this Korean family who moved to Virginia a year ago from Seoul, Korea, and they've created this treatment facility for those who have like illness such as autism, and there ends up being a fire at the facility, and it essentially explodes, and there are fatalities. People die, including this little boy who had a very overbearing mother, who also has been a bit mean to him, and has lost her patience with him, and she is on trial for murdering him. So throughout the story, and he has autism. So throughout the story, we get multiple perspectives of characters, and during this, where characters are sitting there in the courtroom or testifying, and you get bits and pieces of the events of that day and what led to eventually the facility blowing up, and the idea of who could have done it. Was this woman, Elizabeth, the mom of this child, was she guilty or not? Or maybe even if she was a cruel mother, and even if she was an abusive mother, did she start the fire? First off, the multi-perspective is perfect, I think, because everybody sees things differently. Everybody has a different point of view, and everyone has strong feelings. Not everybody thinks the same way or feels the same way. So this allows you to see everybody's point of view of it. Like, throughout the book, you think of it, it's one way, but then all of a sudden you get this other person's perspective, and you realize, wait a second. And you even get Elizabeth's perspective, and she's the one on trial, and you realize that towards the end, she started to feel horrible, realize what a monster she is, and want to redeem herself. And, she didn't want to kill her son. She loved her son. She just didn't understand him and lost her patience. And has what I'm sure a lot of parents that have to deal with these kinds of illnesses, these dark thoughts that she should not have, but she can't help it. She's only human. The difference with her is sometimes she expresses those dark thoughts, but just, not taking it over the line, but, on the edge. And she's just, it's so heartbreaking when you get her perspective, but then you see everybody else's perspective. And people think she's guilty. And, things are taken out of context from her, misinterpreted. And, and it's such a difficult situation because you don't know who to side with them anymore. You almost feel like you can't side with anybody anymore. It also, the reason why I was interested, not just because Olive did a great, talked this book up and did a great job, but also it's about autism, and that's very important, a personal thing for me, as someone who was, I still, I've never been diagnosed, but there's a part of me that thinks I could be on the spectrum. So as someone that is, there's a good chance I'm on the spectrum, or, maybe or maybe not on it, autism has been something that's been on my mind, has been kind of something close to my heart, whether I'm on it or not, actually. And it's one that people I think people don't really pay attention to it enough and don't notice it because oftentimes, unless you're have a severe case of it, a severe illness, you might not even be noticed because all the symptoms, that aspects of autism are, you don't make eye contact. There's a certain subject you just have to talk about and you're passionate about, you're an expert on that subject. Which is probably putting it in simple terms. You have all these quirks that are not considered quote unquote normal, and one of the parents on here, her child will bang his head on the wall, and I think it's when he's anxious or doesn't understand or is upset about something that he will do that. And she also talks about how he spreads his new thing he does is Elizabeth said, there's a scene where Elizabeth talks about how her son talks about rocks, and to her it's she's no one wants to hear about that, and she doesn't understand how to handle it. She handles it awfully. And then this other woman who she is very competitive with says, basically is responding, how dare you, when my son, his new thing is he likes to spread feces on everything, and excrements and stuff. And it's just the struggle of raising an autistic child is real, I think, that it's hard. Because you don't know how to handle it. It's because not everyone knows how to handle it. And we're still learning about autism, I feel like. And, I definitely recommend doing your research if you're interested in autism, because, don't go by what I said. Because I feel like I gave a simplified version of what it is, of, the symptoms of it. And it looks at the idea of who has a right to complain, Like I said, Elizabeth's child came off as looking normal. He was high functioning. And it's what rights do you have to complain? And he was trying to treat her son because to her, he was still, and not in the case of, oh, she's just imagining it. From other people's perspective, that might be what it looks like. But he still has these quirks and behaviors that are a form or aspects of autism. And, there's this one mother who, like I said, her child had worse problems, worse quirks. And she's like, how dare you complain about your child when all he does is, he talks about rocks to strangers. And, he doesn't make eye contact, oh, poor you kind of response. And these two women wasted all this time not communicating with each other, and it's kind of a heartbreaking that these two women could have been friends if they had communicated each other and stopped judging each other and stopped to be like, well, my kid is worse, and like, how dare you compare your kid to mine? Like, if they shoved their jealousy, ignored their jealousy, then maybe they could have been friends. And it's very heartbreaking in that relationship. But it's not, it's not even just them. We also get all these other perspectives. Like, there's also this one woman who's a mother with a daughter that has cerebral palsy. We get the family who ran the business, ran the facility. We get their perspective, and we also get one of the doctors that works there as well. We get his perspective. And along with him, and so it allows you to really see everybody's point of view and realize, that, wait a second, maybe it's not like this. Maybe we just think it's like this because of this other person, what this other person thought it was. There is also a subplot of the family who runs the facility. They are Korean and they're immigrants. They moved here a couple years ago. And they are personally struggling. Like, the daughter does not like America and wants to go back to Korea, where she's not judged by the white American girl, American girls. They don't think she's weird. They think she's weird. And, the dad, when he finally is able to join them in America, he's struggling because, he doesn't know the language, so he can't communicate, and he feels powerless in America, while the mother, young, is doing better, but at the same time, she's working hard. She has to work all the time, so she doesn't have a good relationship with her child. So her daughter, as she grows up, she kind of resents her mother for that and feels like she lost her mother. So it looks at the immigrant experience and how the challenge of it, especially as from Asian. I think Asian is definitely one of those countries where cultures where people are white Americans can be very judgmental and and say things without meaning it, in a very ignorant way. Like, another Korean family that's part of the story is Janine and the doctor, her husband Matt, and he's basically saying he's the doctor. And they're having, like, when she remembers when they were engaged, their engagement party, in this white southern cousins talking, and she overhears them and says, he has an oriental fetish. Which is like, first of all, I don't think Koreans are considered orientals. I would have, which, by the way, don't take my word for it. That's something I need to look up. But anyway, she finds that ridiculous, but at the same time, it still hurts her to hear them being like, oh, he has an oriental fetish. That's why he's in love with this woman, Janine. And it's very heartbreaking to, And in fact, the woman, one of the cousins who says this, that she overhears talking, gives Janine a kitchen tool that is something that, women, it's for something that they use in Japan, not in Korea. She's like, oh, it just seems so appropriate. Like, because all Asians apparently all eat the same food and use the same kitchen stuff. So that, and then she's like, they're trying to get pregnant, and Matt is not, he doesn't like how she's trying to organize when they have sex and all that, he's not comfortable with it. He just wants their relationship to be fun again, and it's not. But unfortunately, he does something stupid to resolve his issues. And cheats, has an affair on her, essentially. And, so it's just, if we get both their perspectives on that situation, and, so it really enlightens the situation. as well as that situation, like learning about their experiences and what they go through. At the same time, their lives being intertwined with this case of this woman on trial for murder of her son. So it's just so, this story is so engaging, really looks at a lot of important issues, and it's very fast paced and just very emotional, a very emotional journey, and I'm so glad, and I'm just so glad I read it. Okay, so let's talk about now, those are all the books I read. Let's talk about what I'm in the middle of. I just started reading Things in Jars by Jessie Kidd, which is funny because I literally just watched, I forgot her name. I watched a booktuber that I like just mentioned that she wants to read this book this autumn. So it's just funny that she said it. I watched that video with her saying that she wants to read this one, and I'm currently reading it now. This is, so far I know that this is about a woman who's a detective during Victorian London, and she specializes in solving cases that involve kids, although her last case went horribly wrong and the kid, I think, died. So, but for some reason, she has been approached by this rich guy to look for his daughter. But unfortunately, there's a lot of mystery surrounding his daughter. He keeps her locked up. And so, but he also does not want to give this woman, Birdie, any information except for, except the fact that he just wants her to find her. So that's all I've gotten so far. But it's definitely, it so far seems kind of fun and interesting. And, I feel like it's one of those books where you kind of get, is it supernatural or not? Or maybe, or more like a book where it's like, the character doesn't believe in the supernatural, but, there's supernatural all around her. And that she has to accept that. But, I don't know. I do like this cover. I think it's really pretty. This is, again, a library book. I didn't buy it. But I keep seeing, I remember seeing the author's other, work. This, the award-winning author of himself. So, I keep seeing that book at the library and at the roast office as well. So, I'm going to read this one. And then there are a lot of other books. So I don't have it with me, but I also did, I'm still working my way through Moby Dick. They're going whale hunting, and we've been introduced to Captain Ahab, who is you get the, find out his obsession with the white whale, which is interesting how, Queequeg, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, how, first of all, my first thing I noticed is that, Ishmael is telling the readers that, oh, he's cool with Queequeg's religious beliefs and everything. It's believe what you want to believe, and Christianity is not the superior religion. Yet when Queequeg is doing something where he kind of goes into a meditative state and has the door locked and everything, and he's practicing Ramadan, which I think is fasting, and Ishmael freaks out and is panicking and thinks something's wrong with him, especially when he can't get into the room, and so he tells him afterwards, once Queequeg is out of his meditative state, he's telling him, you shouldn't do that, and you need to stop doing that, and just, it's so funny how he's all oh, Christians aren't the superior, and it's okay, and, he's telling Queequeg that he's not healthy, what he's doing is not healthy, and he should do that, and even when I was talking to my dad about this, now, even though he tells us, the readers, that, oh, we shouldn't think that the Christianity is the superior religion, and it just came off as very condescending to me, and gave me an ick factor a little bit. And then later, when they finally ready to get on a ship and everything, the other captains who are kind of running the ship with Captain Ahab, they at first are reluctant to let Queequeg join because they're like, oh, you need to be Christian, not whatever religion you are. You have to be Christian because Christian is what you're supposed to be. So they're basically implying that, yeah, Christianity is the superior religion. And it's just, and like, Queequeg you gotta give him props because he doesn't really react to it. He's like, whatever. He probably doesn't want to miss out on this adventure, but he also doesn't really respond to them. And so it's really funny, it's really interesting telling them that, like, his basically implies the Christian religion is the better religion, it's the mother religion or whatever. And, like, how even Ishmael, which that comes from ignorance and how society was back then, and, like, it's really sad that, like, this is, I think, why sometimes people have a problem with religion, because it's so, like, organized religion anyway, so controlling. It's like, we're the better one, we're the superior religion, and you have to all be this, and the rest of you are going to go to hell because you're not our religion. And so it's interesting. And then also, I didn't realize that Starbuck, one of the crew, I think he's Ahab's right-hand man or something, he doesn't agree with hunting the white whale. He doesn't like it. He thinks his revenge plot is stupid. Like, he shouldn't, it's just, like, at the end of the day, it's just a whale. He's doing what was instinctive for him. So, it's just, yeah, it's like, I'm sorry about your leg, but, he was an animal. He's doing what animals do, protecting himself. So he's the only one who doesn't like the idea. And while Ishmael's kind of just, he seems like that type of person who just, like, he doesn't, he kind of stays neutral or just goes with the flow and doesn't try to question things or rebel against it, Like, he doesn't have super strong opinions. He's just really interested in this, or if he does, he doesn't vocalize them, or he's like, he just accepts things the way they are. Which can be good and bad, So yeah, I'm progressing through that, like, but I just recently found that there are some readathons I want to do starting in September, including a read-along of It, which I was waiting for. But then I realized that in both the readathon and the read-along, they also have those people that have Discords and Twitters, and it's like, I don't want to download or sign up for another site. It's just too much. And I understand, and probably nothing's wrong with the site, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a great site and nothing is wrong with it. I just don't want to download Discord. I don't want to go through all that trouble. I feel like I can't participate in all these readathons and be active. Except for I do have Instagram. It's just I'm not very good at being active on Instagram. So, yes, I feel like that's part of why it's hard for me to do readathons, because, a lot of the activities is on a Discord page or on a Twitter page, and it's like, I don't want to sign up for Twitter. Twitter scares me. And then I don't want to download Discord. I don't want to deal with that, So it's a little bit frustrating that I can't really do readathons. And, I can, but I can't really actively participate in the way I want to. So, okay, so last but not least, like, those are the ones, things in jars, and then, sorry, the tiredness just hit me, I think because I walked to the roast office, but, let me go ahead and show you, let me go ahead and show you what I got. So I decided to stick with 2 books. Now, I was hoping to find Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, because I have seen it there, but it wasn't there. Although Lisa, the woman who owns the roast office, kind of runs it, she was saying she has seen it there. So I'm guessing what happened, she saw it there, and then someone literally just bought it right after she, saw it. Although now I'm nervous because I, wrote the title of the book and stuff to, and put my cell phone number so if they ever find it, which means I'll have to answer my cell phone, because I don't like answering if I don't recognize the number. And if it's work, I'll feel obligated to say I can come in, even if I don't want to. I'm also apprehensive because I'm worried that it's going to be a mass market. And I already have the mass market. The thing is, I'm trying to get a regular size paperback and trading in the mass market of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Narwhal. So I'm kind of nervous about that. And I almost am tempted to just buy it at the thrift store, but I gave them that piece of paper. So I feel like, I could just ignore it and just buy it from the books and just ignore it. I feel bad. But, I'm almost tempted to ask Dad's opinion on it. The thing is, I probably should just wait and see if it comes to the bookstore because it will be cheaper at the bookstore. This with the edition that I want, the paperback, regular size paperback, and also with thrift books, there's no guarantee you'll get the one that you want. Although if it's more expensive than like $5, but if it's more than $10 on thrift books, then I'm assuming it's the regular size paperback. If it's a book that's more than $10, I think. So I don't know. I'm still debating because I'm nervous, and then I will feel bad if it does come in, and then I'm like, oh, I already bought it because I'm impatient, and I didn't trust you guys. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think they're gonna get mad at me or anything if I end up not getting it and telling them. Although I wouldn't know how to explain to them if I did buy it and it was like, oh, I bought it from somewhere else. Because then I would have to tell them, yeah, I gave you the piece of paper, but then I changed my mind at the last minute and decided to just buy it somewhere else. But anyway, enough talking about that. So, oh shit. Damn it. Oh, that's what you get with old books. Okay, so I decided to bring home 2 books from there, and I brought home, so I decided to buy, which, it's funny that I bought this one, because I did the hoarding books tag, and I said I don't buy books on a whim. I usually learn about it and everything. And I did go on Goodreads, but it didn't have any actual reviews, it just said star ratings. And, so I kind of did look it up. But this is Selections from Walden by Henry David Thoreau. Although I guess it was also published by someone else, this particular edition. But I've heard Walden's name quite a few times by other people. And I want to say there's an actor that I like that has read Walden as well. Or there's like an author that I like that is a fan of Walden. Or I'm trying to think. I know this name. I don't know what else he's written. He's one of those classic authors that's known, but I do not remember. Henry David Thoreau. Which I can't think of it. It should probably be obvious because, he's one of those famous classic authors, but I cannot think of it right now. I'm also tired at the moment. Like, the tiredness just hit me, like I said. I think it might have to do with walking to the roast office. But I don't really have much to tell you. Like I said, I'm familiar with the author. I've heard the names. I've heard Thoreau. Also, I kind of liked this edition, although I just, that's what happened. That's what happens when you get a really old book. But yeah, I liked the look of this book. And yes, it is hardback, but it's small. It's kind of small, so it's not as big. Right? It's easier to manage. And I don't know if this is stories or poems or essays. I don't know, but I'm definitely gonna look at it. And it did get a lot of good 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads. So, I'm gonna look again via my computer because I was using my phone before, and just see if there's anyone said anything about this book. Anything actually said something instead of just putting the star rating. But yeah, so I'm kind of curious. And the last but not least, and then the other book I ended up buying was, okay, so I already had, this is again another one where I had a mass market copy, but I decided to get, I saw this, I was like, you know what, I might as well buy it. Buy a cheap, paperback, a regular size paperback. And that is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Fullett. And this is about the building of a cathedral. And I've been needing to read it, and I don't know, I guess because of, the person put their little address. Okay, well that makes me feel a little less, makes me feel a little less free and feels like I can get away with, even if I have my name on it, I can still give it to them if I decide I'm not interested anymore and want to donate it. But this is, I guess he wrote this after World Without End. But I have, and it's an book club, Oprah's book club, why? Well, I guess it looks nicer when Oprah's name is in the middle. So I didn't know that, but I have been wanting to, I figured, maybe if I had a regular size copy, that maybe I would be more interested in picking up the book. And also, it fits in a lot better with all the other Ken Follett books, because I think it might be the only one that Ken Follett book that I have in mass market copy originally. So, and also the print of these size books is a lot bigger than those mass markets. So, which again is why I want to get the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell mass market. Not mass market, the regular size paperback, because I don't know what to do. Mom probably said the smarter thing is to just buy, just wait to see if it's going to be at the roast office. But then that's a bit unpredictable. Granted, it's not like I need the book right now. To be fair, and of course, as soon as if I ask my mom right now, she'll be like, "Do you want to buy the book now?" She'll assume that I bring it up now because I want to buy the book now. But yeah, so those are the books I bought recently. I stuck with 2 because I was trying not to spend too much money, and that's the nice thing about the used bookstores. It's although I think I probably shouldn't buy any more right now anyway, because I need to, because I don't have, I'm trying to stick to my budget of $75 per month. Okay, so if you guys liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos. I would love to hear what you read in August. If you bought any books, what books did you buy in August? Feel free to share in the comments below. And I hope you are doing well and staying safe and healthy, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye!